It was only a matter of time, but now it is official. Someone from the WWE has tested positive for COVID-19. Now, last night, this was breaking news during the airing of Monday Night Raw. We received a statement from WWE's Associate Medical Director, Dr. Jeffrey Dugas, who said, quote, "A developmental talent who was last on site at WWE's training facility on Tuesday, June 9th, has tested positive for COVID-19. Since that time, no other individuals that attended the facility have reported symptoms. However, out of an abundance of caution and to ensure the health and safety of the company's performers and staff, all talent, production crew and employees on site at the training and production facilities will be tested for COVID-19 immediately. Following the test results, WWE plans to proceed with its normal television production schedule." End quote. Now, this comes on the back of a report from Brian Alvarez, who reported that WWE actually used real fans for this week's television tapings alongside the developmental talents they have been using recently. The people who were allowed to attend the shows included some local die-hard fans as well as some of the friends of wrestlers who live in the area. The fans were scattered around the ring and some on the hard cam side were allowed to sit on chairs. Now, the WWE officials did make them sign waivers to not take pictures or send out spoilers for the show. The waivers apparently stated that there could be an inherent risk in attending the event and WWE was not liable if any of them contracted COVID-19. This is just a crazy story, and we'll get into the more details of it as we go on. There is so much really to cover here, and by all accounts this has caused a lot of confusion backstage. The company announced that all superstars and staff will be tested for coronavirus tomorrow. This is actually, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is actually the first widespread testing that the company have done. Now, we were meant to have scheduled television tapings today, but that's been postponed until tomorrow, until Wednesday at the time of recording. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, the company today scheduled to tape next week's Raw and SmackDown. The status of the NXT taping for Wednesday is still unknown. But to say that things are crazy backstage right now, it is an absolute understatement. And on top of this, I mean, these are the facts that or the story, shall I say, that I'm finding the most disturbing about this whole situation is the lack of precautions, the lack of testing, and the lack of measures put in place to stop any of this is insane. Now, on top of one of the stories we heard, and we've since had backed up by several people on social media, is that when this COVID-19 positive test story was released and the statement was released by WWE, multiple sources in WWE said that they only found out on social media too, or they found out through a talent relations app at the same time that everyone else did. That just shouldn't be happening. And I mentioned these fans and family members in attendance along with the developmental trainees in the audience for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, main event, whatever. They were told specifically by WWE not to wear masks. They don't like the aesthetic look of it and they don't like the sound look of it. Now, masks have been reported and told by scientific experts that they can help reduce the spread of COVID-19. But WWE didn't want to put that measure in place. We've seen it with AEW, we've seen it with other sports. If you look at any sport that's going on right now, everyone is wearing a mask. The reason why is because it stops the spread of COVID-19. But by all accounts, that doesn't count to WWE. WWE doesn't want their people to do that. They've got their hockey glass up, and it's taken one person to finally test positive for WWE to do company-wide testing. I mean, this is insane. This is insane, and it's completely unsettling. I mean, most of the roster have never been tested at all, and the worse it just looks. I mean, WWE should have been properly testing people for the virus from the very, very beginning. This pandemic has been going on for months now, and they haven't been doing any testing. And I know people are going to say back to it, go, oh, okay, well, they were actually doing temperature checks. They were doing, I mean, the checks they were doing are laughable. They are actually laughable when you really get into them. They were doing temperature checks, and even if you were above the temperature, some of the people had been let into the PC and were let in to perform. Okay, that's one. They were asking people, quote, if they felt okay, how do you feel? I mean, what kind of medical test is that? And then they were given a questionnaire. How hard is that to pass? How hard is that to pass? I mean, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And it's not like last night's Raw had a ton of untested fans, untested family members, and featured a elderly person who is in the high-risk category like Ric Flair, who is well documented for the last 5 years, has had numerous health problems, has nearly died on 2 occasions, but last night he's in a confined space with a load of people that are untested for COVID-19, and this is after news is broke that one of the developmental talent has tested positive for it. It's insane. It's insane. Now, Ryan Satin is reporting that the person who tested positive for COVID-19 at the Performance Center was a Performance Center trainee, not someone who was on NXT or WWE TV for that matter. But it's not good enough. It's really not good enough. And the thing that springs to mind the most when I hear about this story is that we heard all these reports about Roman Reigns saying that he didn't want to compete. He didn't want to compete during the pandemic because he didn't feel comfortable. He didn't think it was sending the right message to his family, to his community. And he's got brand new twins at home. And he felt the right thing to do for his health, for their health, and for the right message was to stay away until this was all over. And Sami Zayn, after working a couple of these empty arena shows, these WWE Performance Center shows, decided the very same. He decided that it wasn't safe and he didn't feel comfortable performing. And can you blame them? I mean, it makes their decision to stay at home look very, very wise now. Because they obviously weren't getting tested. They were having their temperature checked and asking, do you feel all right? Cool, you can go in. I mean, it's been proven several times now, you can have a false positive test. Some of the times when you have COVID-19, it's asymptomatic. You don't have any symptoms. Some people don't have symptoms for 10 days, 2 weeks, before they realise they had it or they actually had it in the first place. So for WWE to ask, do you feel okay? It's ridiculous. This is a billion-dollar company, a publicly traded company, who is putting the health of the employees, their families, and now fans at risk. And, they signed a waiver saying that you might get COVID-19, we're not liable. It doesn't matter if WWE are liable or not. Think of the image that would do if someone got sick or someone potentially even worse died from attending a WWE show, or one of your employees died from doing their job because you didn't decide that it was important enough to do a proper test. You decided just to do their temperature and ask them if they felt okay. And when they asked if they could wear a mask, you said no, because it wasn't aesthetically pleasing to Vince McMahon on camera and they wanted as much noise as possible in the Performance Center. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. And other journalists have mentioned today that WWE seemingly prioritizing sound quality over the health of its roster and employees. And it's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous and it's unacceptable. Now, this is during a week where football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, is returning here in the UK. The Premier League, arguably the biggest football league in the world, is returning. And if you're a football fan or if you're a sports fan, you would know to get the Premier League back to playing here in the UK has been a huge, huge deal. They've had multiple rounds of testing for every single player in the Premier League, every single staff member, every single person involved in the club has had multiple coronavirus tests, proper tests, not temperature checks, not filling out a questionnaire, not asking them, do you feel good enough to play? They've had real tests because it's a serious issue. It's a serious virus. It's a pandemic. What more do I have to say? And in addition to that, they have isolation protocols pre and post match. They have pre and post match testing. We have protocols of how far away some of the staff members can sit, how far away, how many staff members are allowed into the stadium. The substitutes, they have to sit so far away. They have to wear masks. All of these measures have been put into place for the health and safety of the players, the staff, their family, and the wider community. But WWE is on a different level, right? They don't have to do that. This whole COVID-19 pandemic is just a nuisance to them because they'd rather be in arenas, they'd rather have sold out stadiums. To me, it reinforces the fact that if they weren't specifically told by the government you can't run WrestleMania in a stadium, they would have done it. They would have done it because it doesn't matter to them. What matters is the almighty dollar and the show must go on, pal. Now, factor in, WWE had piped-in crowd noise for the Randy Orton Edge match this weekend, and that was fine. And we've had the same in sports now. The Bundesliga in Germany, they've trialled this piped-in crowd noise for their matches. The Premier League are going to do it. They're going to pipe in crowd noises for the matches so it makes it easier for the viewer to watch at home, and it makes more people feel comfortable watching at home. Why can't WWE do that? It just proves the point that WWE is way behind on all of this testing and all of its health and safety issues. They can release as many statements as they like. They can release as many paragraphs as they like, saying that they're going to do the right thing, they're going to do testing. But the fact that it's taken someone to test positive, it's taken us to get to June 16th, or however long it is, for them to test everyone on the roster, quite frankly, is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. When you've got people globally dying, one of the worst pandemics of, human history, at least for the last 100 years, it's taken someone to test positive for you to actually do anything. $1 billion publicly traded company. It's horrendous. And the lack of communication from the WWE higher ups with the talent is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Imagine you've been putting potentially the life of yourself and your loved ones on the line to perform for the company and to perform for millions of fans around the world. Then you find out that someone did test positive. You find out at the same time as everyone else on social media. How can you trust this company if you're an employee? And people will say, well, AEW, they've been saying they've been doing tests. And this is bigger than a WWE versus AEW situation. This is bigger than the quality of product. This is bigger than any philosophy that you have about WWE or AEW. What's your preference, who you prefer watching, any of that stuff, what tribe you're in. This is bigger than that. AEW, ever since they've been doing the shows, they have been doing full coronavirus tests. WWE has been testing temperatures. As you are able to be asymptomatic with the virus, WWE really needs to do more. You can have a normal temperature, you can have the virus. We have seen instances in the UFC where people have tested, they've had their temperature checked, they're fine, then they test positive for the virus. UFC, to be fair, they've got it completely right. They're testing people like 4 times prior to actually having the fight. They're having pre and post test fights. They're wiping down the ring. They're wearing face masks because they've proven to reduce the spread of the virus. But WWE doesn't want to do that. Vince McMahon doesn't want to do that because it doesn't look good on TV. It doesn't sound good on TV. We've heard reports that Vince McMahon thinks that this whole virus is just a nuisance. It's a pain. Oh, what a pandemic. What a pain. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. And they're telling them, the fans that they've let in, that they can't wear masks, and they can't notify a talent of a positive test. And we're hearing rumors about WWE wants to start running live events in August. What are they going to do then? Oh, you fans in your crowd, you can come in, but you can't wear a mask. You can't wear a mask, and you have to sign something saying we're not liable if you get sick and die. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And and the more I look at it, it was inevitable. It was absolutely inevitable. When you tell talent and fans and whoever that they can't wear masks on TV, you refuse, and this is what it is, it's a refusal to conduct proper tests. Instead, you do temperature checks. You ask talent how they're feeling, along with this questionnaire. This is what happens. And this is why talent like a Roman Reigns, like Sami Zayn, and probably like others that didn't have the chance or didn't feel that they could speak up, this is why they didn't feel safe. And it makes the decision of Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn to stay at home look very, very wise. And while I am stunned that it's taken this long to get a positive test, I'm stunned about the negligence from WWE to all of this stuff. The thing I am stunned about the most is that it's taken this long, to be honest. Because the amount of fire that they're playing with here is horrendously dangerous. Now, I know people will accuse me here of sounding dramatic, and they'll say, oh, you're trying to blow something up that isn't a big deal. Well, it is a big deal, okay? When people are dying around the world, that's a big deal to me. When one person dies around the world, that's a big deal, let alone hundreds of thousands of people. But what happens here when someone gets seriously ill? What happens when someone even dies? Just because a mask isn't as aesthetically pleasing and, quote, the show must go on, pal, WWE has to do better here. They have to do better here. What they have been doing just isn't good enough. It isn't good enough. And the more you hear about it and the more details that are coming out of it, it's just more and more disturbing. Now, I've heard people respond to me specifically and other people on social media saying WWE employees said they felt completely comfortable that what WWE has been doing is good enough. And of course they're going to say that. Of course they're going to say that. What good employee is going to come out and say what they're doing is terrible. They're putting people's lives at risk. This is a pandemic era we're living in. Okay, job security is at an all-time low. People need the money. People need job security. If WWE tells them what to do, they're going to do it. This is the same week a court filing has been made about the whole issue with Saudi Arabia, and that WWE, that plane in 2019 could have been held hostage by the Saudi government and the Saudi royal family because Vince McMahon had an argument with them. It just proves that Vince McMahon doesn't care about his talent. He doesn't. He cares about the money, and he cares about his product, and he cares about his company. And it's just disturbing. It's disturbing. And if you think that every single employee is happy with all they're doing and WWE is doing all they can to help them during this pandemic, it's not true. They released a load of people during a pandemic era, right? And the job security was down. And I know that's what happens. But they made a storyline out of it on WWE TV with Drake Maverick. Even that's in bad taste. There's nothing this company won't do, okay, to protect themselves and not their talent, it would appear like. That is the cold hard facts of this. WWE has to do more. They have to do more, and they have to protect their talent. I'm sure not everyone has the pull of a Roman Reigns or a Sami Zayn to say, you know what, this is BS, I'm staying at home. And to be honest, I bet the people like Robert Roode who couldn't even fly into the country are thinking, thank God. Because why would I? Why would I want to go in there and jeopardize myself and my family and other people? It's just wrong. It's just wrong. And it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And I know people are going to say, you know, you're reading too much into what Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez says. You can't trust all of them. And I've seen people online saying that some sources in WWE saying all of these reports aren't true. How come there have been so many of them then? How many there can be so many of them? And I'm not saying everything is completely correct. I'm not saying everything is 100% accurate in facts, because at the end of the day, these are anonymous sources and it's difficult to read between the lines of what's really happening. But I certainly do believe there is no smoke without fire. And in this situation, there is a lot of smoke. There is a lot of smoke here. And WWE, for $1 billion publicly traded company that has had record profits and record revenues for the last however many years, to not be bothering to properly check and test their employees and their talent and make sure they protect them and their families and the people that work in the Performance Center isn't good enough. It isn't good enough, and WWE needs to do more. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.